was not at the, yeah, I recognize all your faces actually. Is there anybody that wasn't at the presentation an hour ago? Okay, well, welcome. That means, that's a good sign that not everybody ran out of the room screaming and said, no more, no more. And you want to actually dig into some of this stuff right now. How many of you have used ArcGIS Online ever before? Okay, most people. So we're going to dig into that tool for a number of reasons. I know some of you are instructors, and so you can relate that it is a much more approachable, friendly way to step into geospatial technology, as well as to address some of the data issues that we'll talk about right now. In part because we've got this new paradigm. It's great to have, in my opinion, perhaps you can relate, it was a wonderful leap forward to have your documents in the cloud, right? Google Docs, OneDrive, etc., so you can collaborate with colleagues on a research project like you all are doing, or something else. It's a wonderful thing to have music in the cloud, right? You've got your ABBA's Greatest Hits online. That was a band. Anyway, the point is, it's even better, in my opinion, to have GIS in the cloud because of the things that we were talking about upstairs and that many of you live and breathe. You want to cross-collaborate on data and methods and sharing the models and the web mapping applications and that sort of thing. So GIS in the cloud is a huge leap forward. Sorry, I'm intruding on your introductory statements.
Oh. No, I just want to, yes, introduce the next part of our event. Well, at the same time, I would like to take a moment to thank you, some dear people that helped organizing this event. And please bear with me, because I was allowed to do that. So foremost, to Dr. Kursky, thank you for traveling and visiting us, sharing your knowledge. Thank you for doing what you do and encouraging us to continue improving our GIS skills. I would like to acknowledge, and thanks for the bottom of my heart, everyone from the Office of Student Life and Leadership, Denis Martin, Pam Hutton, Chloe Bazana, Melissa Gui, Jody Oriel. Thanks to Christina Lee for her guidance and checking in with me. Thanks to Deirdre Bartholomew and Sodexo team for feeding us delicious lunch. Big hug for Deirdre. Thanks to MCC Computer IT Department, especially Don Vogelved, Rebecca Orvetti for helping in technical issues we had and providing instant service to the club. Thanks to Jeremy Case and his recording crew. Thank you, Professor Howard, for making connection with Dr. Kursky and helping out in organizing the event. Thanks to Chemistry and Geosciences Department. Thanks to Professor Heather Pierce, Professor Jonathan Little, Professor Wayne Howard, Professor Michael Boester. Thanks to Alex Rowley, who has been every step along the way. Thanks for being so reliable and proactive. And lastly, thank you, Professor Jonathan Little, for guiding the mapping club, helping with any issue we had dealt, and for letting us students to spread our wings and by giving us a chance to be part of this event organizing team. And that's it. And now,
a big thank you to Maria for guiding us.
And now, without further ado, let's continue.
Now, you are so wonderful with your public speaking and just the elegance and grace that you bring to these events. Gosh, I wish we could take you all around the world with our geospatial technology institutes, but I know you will have a very bright future, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you about the schools of business and our outreach to them, given your background. Much appreciated. All right, folks, we are into the next section of our time together. I know it's always a very short, it's a bite-sized, gluten-free, digestible nugget of geospatial data is what we're going to consume here in the next hour. But I hope that's enough to give you a sense of some of the things that we talked about upstairs, that we have this wonderful, again, thinking about Google Docs, OneDrive, and all the data sharing documents, and then music on the cloud, and now having geospatial in the cloud is good, but also that means there's a lot more choices on the data formats, the different scalability, the different data quality issues that we talked about upstairs, and so much more that we'll be able to dig into in this part of the workshop. So, that being said, choice is good, but it also lends some complications and some challenges in terms of what do I focus on, when do I use the data in different models, different methods, and so on. So let me just say this. If we go to you're all in the web browser, correct? And I'm going to go to the Spatial Reserves data blog. The Spatial Reserves data blog. So just do a search on spatial, isn't that spatial, reserves. And in the Spatial Reserves Guide to Public Domain Data, this isn't the end-all be-all. It doesn't pretend to be. But every week, and this might be valuable for those of you especially that are instructors, but also students, that every one of these essays is designed to be a short segment that you could actually teach from without a lot of jargony stuff. Related to what I was talking about upstairs, you see on the right side there's a data equity. What does that mean? Why do we need to talk about it? So again, a short essay on what is data equity and why do we care? What's where, why is it there, and why should we? What's where, why is it there, and why should we? Care. Thank you. Awesome. Indeed. That's our threefold mantra. But one of the things that you can do on the right side there is there's a little search box. And I'd like us to search on strategies. Strategies. And the first thing that comes up is modern strategies for finding geospatial data. Now, I know there's some data librarians here, so I feel a little intimidated because you folks live and breathe this stuff all the time. And we really value your, again, presence on campuses. I visit 35 campuses a year face-to-face. I do a lot of online support. So last Friday, University of Oklahoma, online. Thursday, I was at the University of Wyoming, face-to-face. So on those campuses where GIS is spread into different disciplines, instrumental in that process are the geospatial data librarians. So yay for the geospatial librarian support here at MCC. I think it's even more, and this is hard for me to say as a geographer, even more than having a geography department on campus, if those librarians are there and engaged in geospatial, they have done more than any other single factor in spreading GIS into multiple disciplines. So kudos for you all to support and work closely with the geospatial librarians. So modern strategies for finding geospatial data. I'm not going to, since we only have 60 minutes, go into every single one of these, but for those of you working with colleagues in different disciplines, students, etc., it's sort of like going out in the field, in my opinion. You don't just plunge into the field and, oh, let's just collect all the trees on campus. Wait a minute, what methods are we going to use? What units are we going to collect in? What tools are we going to use to collect the data? So planning is a good thing, and don't just plunge in to say, more data is what I need. More is not always better, right? When 1 meter satellite imagery came out, for those of you that were around in those days, about 2001, 2002, 1 meter satellite imagery. Let's study a whole watershed. Hey, Joseph, I want the 1 meter imagery for this entire Missouri-Mississippi watershed. Wait a minute, why? Why do you need that kind of more is not always better is one of the mantras here. And secondly, have a clear idea of what you want. Otherwise, it's wandering through a grocery store without a clear idea of what you're looking for, right? Oh gosh, there's 100 kinds of breakfast cereal. Choice is a good thing, but let's be focused about what is your goal in your project. Because as you know, it's very tempting to add data to our ArcGIS Pro project, QGIS, ArcGIS Online, but really, is it going to add any value? If it doesn't add value to what you're trying to understand and study, don't go there. Right? It's kind of like you folks working on your master's thesis or your PhD dissertation. Some of you remember those days. It's like your advisors always told you, focus, 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 right? So that's really the mantra here. And number 2 there, if you click on that useful aid, I think it's a helpful diagram. It's not the end-all be-all, but it's kind of simple. But I found data. Ooh, what coordinate system is it in? What attributes are available? And so on. Is there metadata? Remember I was talking about upstairs where Everybody is a data creator now. One of the strategies that's in this document is, we'll talk about this in more detail in a bit, but sometimes it's sort of analogous to, let's say, a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group where you have certain content creators that you respect. And part of my advice for where to find data is finding the people that have authored content that you find valuable. So I mentioned Lisa Berry upstairs, one of my cartography colleagues. So I know Lisa Berry has content in ArcGIS Online. So I tend to look at her demographic data because I know she documents her data. I know where she gets her sources, et cetera, et cetera. Bern Sokolsky, cartographer at Esri. And not that these have to be Esri people. No. But find people inside ArcGIS Online, right? If you go to arcgis.com, right? arcgis.com, I'm just going to open a separate tab. If I do a search, so here's a tip for content. If I do an owner, and then a name of a named user in ArcGIS Online, I see their content. So one of my logins is JJ Kursky. Doesn't mean that it's Pearls of Wisdom, but you know certain people that produce content out there in ArcGIS Online. That's a nice search tool, by the way. And another way of introducing this is that if I only want to see apps, I can go to the left side and say, oh, I only want to see dashboards. Okay, so now I only see that user's dashboards. If they've shared it, right, I'm not logged in, so it's if they've shared it with the general public. So all these are publicly accessible, right? My walkability maps that some of you have seen from me in the past, where I've got a survey 123, I've got a story map. That's one of the reasons why I was walking around the campus this morning collecting data. I know, it's always about the collecting of the data. I know that's pretty geeky, but I've got a couple of new points in my walkability map now from wandering around your wonderful campus. But that's one way of seeing this. And another thing is, if you click on a username in there, you can expand it, but in my case, you don't have to write your master's thesis. I probably have too much stuff in here, but make sure that the username is not just like the default head and shoulders, that actually there's some content in there. So if you find Jay Smith or something, you look and you don't know where they work, you don't know what they do, you don't have as much confidence in their data, right? It could be a middle school student, right? Some of the middle school data in here is actually quite good. But again, like we were talking about upstairs, be critical of the data. So when you're producing content, make sure you actually populate your ArcGIS Online profile. If you want to share data, remember that's an if, not that you have to, but if you're sharing data, make sure you populate this. And Esri is we've got privacy statements and other things on there. We're not an advertising company. We don't care, hey, there's this cool, we're making maps of Starbucks. Here's a coupon. We don't care about who's in an organization. We don't even know who's in your ArcGIS Online organization. We don't even care who's in your ArcGIS Online organization, as long as you have one or two admins that are responsible for managing the content, inviting students. We don't even look at see who's in those organizations. So the point is, we're just GIS geeks. It's not that we're mining personal information. So all that being said, it is advisable, if you're going to share with others, to populate this a little bit so people can make a more informed decision on your own content. Okay, so that's the graphical aid, and that's also a little bit of strategies.